All right, it's my last night in Shanghai. No better way to end it with the view of the buns. Shanghai's probably my top city I've ever been to. Super clean. People are really friendly usually, except they have bad manners usually. And the food's really good, really affordable, and the streets are really clean. So, yeah.
What is up, internet? It's your boy Alan, back with another video, and I'm excited for this one because I'm finally back in the States. You'll probably see me on my YouTube's posting, but I just have a big backlog of footage because I just wasn't posting because I didn't get a VPN in China, and now I just have a backlog of footage where I'll be uploading the rest of my Asia time and trip. And I'm back in the beautiful sunny state of California. And after just traveling around the world, specifically Asia, I come back here to this beautiful weather. And now I know why people love California. This weather is so good. It's not humid like most parts of Asia right now. Not too hot. You can be out midday. It's around 60 degrees, but the sun is just beaming on you. And you guys have probably been seeing some of my China vlogs and shorts. And I just got back from that country, as well as being away from America for the last 3 months. And in today's vlog, I want to talk about my overall experience of being in China and some free-flowing thoughts. So when I think about China, I feel like it's always top of mind for that country to be talked about in political topics, specifically around business and technology and the AI war and manufacturing. China's just top of mind. It's really feels like it's positioned as an enemy towards the US. And it was interesting to see and go to the country that is constantly being portrayed in the media as the villain in the US news cycle, specifically around geopolitical conflicts, mainly around business and technology, which is most of the news I pay attention to. I don't pay attention to other political tensions around China, but that's how I see it. It's mostly like AI. It's like China's catching up to us to an AI. It's like the chip wars, manufacturing, tariffs, all that. And it's really portrayed, feels like a negative light, but going to the country, it's always nice to get a perspective that's real world and not from a media perspective. It's always great to experience something for yourself so you can actually get that real point of view. And when I was in China, I was like, damn, this country, people are really friendly, first of all. I think somebody only tried to scam me once, but I don't know if it was actually a scam, where this guy was trying to get me to cancel my DD ride and he wanted me to pay him under the table. And I didn't really want to do all that shit because navigating Alipay in a different language is already hard enough. But he was also really nice about it. And everybody was really nice in China. Customer service is actually off the charts. Like, you would go to a retail store and they would just start following you around the store. And if you looked up or made eye contact with them, they would immediately try to help you out and, you know, get your shoes or get the shirt that you want. And if you liked the shirt, they would immediately put it behind the counter, and then you wouldn't have to shop. And I guess some of the Chinese people were a little bit rude when me and my buddy were trying to ask them to help us take a picture in Chongqing, and nobody wanted to help us take a picture, given it was a super crowded area and it was not ideal to ask somebody to take a picture. Maybe I was actually saying the wrong word, but that's beyond the point. The majority of people are really nice in China. They are just trying to help a tourist out, help me order my food, help me get directions. And I can't complain about the people too much. So I think being in China was a really good eye-opening experience because I could see why the US was just so pressed about China becoming a world power. Because when I pulled up to the country, I started off in Shanghai, and when I was in Shanghai, I was like, this city is absolutely immaculate. It's definitely, I've been to many Asian cities like Korea, Singapore, Japan, Hong Kong, Taiwan. I've been to the majority of Asian countries and cities, and I've lived in New York City. I'm in the Bay Area. So I've seen a lot of great cities. I've been to a lot of parts of Europe and a lot of major cities there. And Shanghai is definitely my most favorite city because I think number one, it's freaking clean. Like you see the sidewalks in a metropolitan city that's so dense with so many people, absolutely spotless. The food, you can go from obviously Michelin star food to street food. The Michelin star food can get up there. It can be kind of expensive. Maybe it could be $20 per person or even up to $40 a person. And then some drinks at rooftop bars would be around $25. But there's also like affordable Michelin star food spots that would be $5 or $6. And then you can just get regular street food for $5 or $6 as well. It just depends on what you eat. But the majority of food that we're eating was pretty high quality. There's be some Chinese, really Chinese food, like fried chicken that still had some, I think it was like the gizzards in there or something. It's just like very Chinese. That could be off-putting for some people, but as a Chinese person, I didn't mind eating it. But the food quality was really good, super cheap. And also the city, I think anytime we go to a city, you want to think about the safety of it. And that city is so safe because literally every single corner you walk on, there's like this big ass camera following you around, and that really deters people from committing any crime. And then all the police officers, they don't have any guns, but they all do carry cameras. And even on the airplane, they have an air marshal person that has constantly a camera recording just to deter people from committing any crimes. And I guarantee if there's any kind of petty crime, they're going to track it, they're going to find your ass, and they're going to get you. So that deters a lot of people from committing crimes. And then it was also interesting. I think Chinese people are also really used to being filmed all the time because when I pull out the camera, I think they also have a strong social media culture, but when I pull out the camera, they don't even bat an eye. I mean, sometimes they do, but most of the time they're like, okay, another freaking person with a camera, and they're talking to it. But that's beyond the point. China's super safe. It's cleanly, it's safe. There's freaking trees everywhere. Like if you're in New York City, it's pretty rare that you're gonna have trees anywhere besides some shitty small park. But if you go to a city in China, if you go to a park in China, the park is incredibly well manicured. It's absolutely massive. The architecture kind of reminds me of, there's a lot of European influence to it, but also it reminds me of Miami, where the buildings have like this like tropical kind of vibe. And there's also a bunch of shrubbery and trees, and it's a major metropolitan city. It's like a mix of New York, Miami, some European influence, and then you get Shanghai, this ultra modern city. In terms of public transportation, I didn't really take it at all because DDs, which are the Ubers in China, are really cheap. Most rides would be around 15 minutes or 18 minutes to a different spot in Shanghai. It will only cost you around like $4 or $5. So I didn't really take the metro, but I also heard the metro is really efficient. It just didn't seem like there were that many places to get in and out on, for example, the subway in Shanghai, like it is in New York City or Japan, where it's basically on every street, and even Hong Kong. So it didn't seem as accessible, but I didn't really go looking for it. But Shanghai has definitely been one of my favorite cities to be in. I think Japan is also a great city, but what I really liked about Shanghai is it's just so different. I think everybody from the West goes to Japan, and I think a little bit more people are going to China just because of the visa rules have been a little bit more relaxed. And I think it's just a very unique city. And I could also see why the US is a little bit pressed, because you go to Shanghai and man, it's 10 times better than whatever there's in the US, the best city in the US. They also have an incredible EV game. I now when I walk around and look at our cars here, I'm like, wow, our cars absolutely suck. At least 80 to 90% of cars in China are EVs now. And I think they did that because I think China first had like a smog and pollution problem because they used to manufacture, they do manufacture a lot of the world's goods, but it also causes a lot of pollution. So I think that's number one reason why the government has been so heavily investing into green energy. And then also second reason I think was Chinese or a lot of like German, American cars, they're really good at the combustible engine. And it takes a lot of years of experience to create a good combustible engine. And I think China kind of said, like, we'll just focus on the future and begin to invest into EV technology. And they've really made some incredible strides. BYDs, you can get them for around, I don't know, 10 to 15 G's for a base model car, but man, that value is pretty insane. I think the government subsidizes in China, and if they brought any of those EVs to America, man, the car market would be absolutely destroyed. So sometimes I wonder if the U.S. government's absolutely scamming us and saying this is a free market boom, but they're not even allowing Chinese EVs here because they know that it would absolutely cook the market, and all the American cars would be absolutely, nobody would freaking buy them. They would just buy Chinese EVs. And I think the Chinese EVs they just feel like they're from the future. They're better than whatever EVs we have here. They are significantly better than Teslas now, I would say. Teslas used to be on the cutting edge of the EV game. And I think them moving their manufacturing to China has also helped China expedite their process of improving their EVs and making them better, because I got into so many EVs I don't even know the name of, but the legroom was massive. It's quiet. The leather seats, it just felt luxurious. The BYDs, the Li Autos, the Neos, the brands I can't even pronounce. So to make a long point short, I can see why the US is so concerned about China and in the media of it being, they always kind of position as adversary to the US, because on the global stage as a world power, I think China's getting a lot of world influence by, you can just see in Shanghai, it's absolutely immaculate. It's a beautiful country, beautiful city. Definitely the best city I've ever been in my life. Am I biased? I don't really know. What I like about the city is just it's modern, it's clean, it's safe, it's relatively affordable. On the affordable point, I'm making American dollars, so that does help me afford certain things that maybe a regular Chinese person working at Chinese salary would not be able to afford. So a little asterisk there. But as a regular person in China, you get safety, well-paved roads, high quality food. The healthcare seems pretty good. I think anywhere in Asia the healthcare is better, because I went to go get like a regular walk-in appointment. It took me like 2 hours to get some medicine, and it was just like, and I know I've been to doctors in Asia and it's like 30 minutes, an hour, and it's way cheaper. But that's a different point, because I didn't really go see a doctor in China, but I'm assuming it's better. And I think, yeah, beyond all those points about Shanghai, yada, 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 the quality of life, and then I think, yeah, Shanghai is probably one of the best cities in the world. But if you even go to like a tier 2 city like Chongqing or Chengdu, I think number one, like Chongqing is this really popular cyberpunk city where there's a lot of cool social media trends, like this Hongyao cave where all the lights light up. They have this drone show at night. And then it's just, there's a lot of cool like social media things that has allowed it to blow. There's like this train that goes through the building. So Chongqing is like a tier 2 city. It used to be like one of the capital cities of China during the World War with Japan. And then I also went to Chengdu, which is like a really chill, relaxed city where the pandas are from. They just like market that city as a panda tourist destination. And it's a really great city. All of the cities I went to are really developed. It's all really clean, except Chongqing was kind of dirty at times. But regardless of that, I think as I've been around the world, I think that quality of life is usually better outside the US, Shanghai especially, and even Chongqing in China. Those cities are really big, super clean. They really thought out their urban planning. But what makes people come to the US and why I still come back to the US is because man, the dollar is pretty damn great across the world. That's why I was saying the quality of life is really good for me, because I'm able to afford certain things in China that would be really hard for a regular Chinese person to possibly afford on their own in their Chinese salary. And I also know the work-life balance isn't very good out there in China. And I think the U.S. depends on what industry and what company you're working in. The work-life balance might not be very good, but on the U.S. salary, you're able to save money, invest, have different luxury good, or buy certain luxury experiences, go on vacation. And obviously the costs are a lot higher here in the U.S. versus China. And then I think obviously they pay you in proportion to the cost. But even with the higher costs, and if you're making good money, 6 figures plus, you're still going to be able to save and invest for the future. But I still do think the hack is to make American dollars and then spend them somewhere else, whether that be, you could be working remotely, make content, investments, and then spend that out in Asia. And then I think, for example, on the contrast, like I was talking about, making a local salary abroad, or just making a local salary, it can still be fine, right? I think most countries are going to pay you in proportionate to the cost of living, but the difference is the local salaries might not be able to live as comfortably. You could probably afford all those luxury items, but then it'll be really hard for you to save and invest for the future. So the real difference I'm trying to say is the savings power and the investment power of American salary. Even though cost of living is higher in America, you're still going to be able to put money away versus some of the salaries out there in Asia. So even though the cost of living is absolutely dog shit at times here in the US, unless you're like super uber rich, it doesn't really matter where you go. People still come back, and still people want to be in the US because of that economic opportunity. So I think I'm just answering my own question of like, why don't I just move to China or move to some Asian country? And then, so as I was going around all these cities in China, I was starting to think about, why are all the cities here in China so big, safe, clean, good food quality? And I think as I was doing research with ChatGPT, it comes down to how the political system is structured in China. So, for example, city leaders in China they evaluate them on different growth performance metrics like GDP growth, investments, revenue, output, industrial output, social stability, environmental targets. And then their local officials are then promoted, or they get penalized, and they could possibly lose their jobs based on whether they hit those goals. So their job is really metrics driven. And then, for example, a city council elected by residents, you can think of a management chain, which each city is a branch office with KPIs that they are handed down from headquarters, which would be the CCP, the central government. Then the branch manager, which is basically the mayor, is responsible for hitting these KPIs and metrics. And if they don't hit that, that's going to hurt their political career, and they actually might lose their job. So basically, China is like saying, hit these development targets around, economic growth, social stability, and then your political career can advance. But I think on the other hand, right, you might have a U.S. mayor. They do track these metrics, but their power really just comes from elections, appointments, budgets, and local law. So a U.S. mayor might, they might campaign on reduce homelessness by 20%, or hire more police, or build 10,000 homes. There isn't usually one higher level political official saying that if your city's GDP misses their target, you won't get promoted. That's like the biggest difference between the US system and the Chinese system. So for example, a US mayor could say, we need to reduce homelessness, build housing, lower crime, improve schools. They could do all those things, but not move up politically in the system and build their political career, right? There are a lot of different factors for a politician in the U.S. to move up, right? It could be, number one, voters might not actually reward them for hitting certain targets that they set out. Some folks might care more about taxes, crime perception, cost of living, scandals of personality than the actual metrics. then there also might not be an open next role. So to advance, you usually need to run for governor, Congress, senator, but those seats might not even be available, or there also could be stronger candidates out there already. And then I think there's another third point around party politics matter a lot. So even if somebody is like killing the game locally, like we're reducing crime, we're improving the economic growth of the city, yada yada yada, their party, whatever that be, the Democratic or Republican Party, may not even give them a higher spot in office. What really matters on the U.S. political systems around like fundraising, endorsements, media attention, and their networks. So that's kind of the structural differences in the way these cities are governed. China's really metrics driven and focused on hitting certain targets. And if their leaders are able to meet those targets, they have a good chance of, moving up in the political career. But on the U.S. front, they can't campaign. They can campaign on some of those things, like we need to reduce homelessness, or we need to improve our cost of living, or improve the environment. But even if they hit those metrics, there could be so many different influences that they still need to hit to actually move up in the political ranks, and even hitting those goals might not even influence that. So I think those are kind of the big reasons why when I go to these different Chinese cities, like especially Shanghai, Chongqing, Chengdu, the cities all feel really immaculate because their leadership or whoever's in the political system is incentivized to make these cities as best as possible. But in the US, the incentives are completely different. And I think that's been a big reason why these cities in China have been able to develop so quickly. And that's why I'm raving about the quality of life there in China. And given, right, this is a perspective of a tourist, so it could be, I don't know, better or worse for someone that's local. But as a tourist, man, I had a great time. And then I was also thinking about how is China able to get all of this shit done so quickly? I remember 20 or 30 years ago, like China was in, a lot of people were in poverty, but I think it's still a good amount of people are in poverty, but man, they brought a lot of people into the middle class there in China, and then the cities are incredibly well developed. And I think they've been able to build like high-speed rails really quickly, unlike America where people are building high-speed rails and it doesn't even get, or they get funded and it doesn't even get done because all the money is not being spent efficiently. And I don't know, they're hiring shady contractors and people not actually getting the job done. And then I was just thinking about like the news I read about like Xi Jinping, and certain people are just disappearing at times in China because I don't know. I think Xi Jinping has really been cracking down on corruption in the Chinese governments, and I also think that because the CCP is like really running the show, I think it's like a tight group of folks making a lot of decisions in China. But I think having a small decision-making power, a group of people making those decisions, are able to set the tone like correctly, like really quickly. And that's, I think, also a big reason why just having a central place where people make decisions makes things happen very quickly. And also with Xi Jinping kind of getting rid of or making people disappear from the corruption in their government, a lot of the, I don't know, like corruption was around like briberies and whatnot. And maybe I think spending money more efficiently has allowed China to build their high-speed rails, make these super developed cities so quickly. And if I look on the other hand with the US, man, you see these high-speed rails trying to be built in California, not even being built. And I just think about, I think, yeah, like we're just so many people get taxed to death here. The taxes are freaking high and salaries are really high. So I think there's plenty of money to go around. It's just like, where's the money going? It's not being used efficiently at all. It's, you see those, I don't know, it was like these school daycares getting these $1 million of government funding. I don't know what exactly it was, but these like organizations are getting millions of dollars of funding, and it turns out that they're absolutely just scamming the government and not doing anything with that money, and these people are just pocketing the money. So I think that kind of shows a lot of the waste in the American system and the corruption. I don't know if it's corruption, but like it's the waste in the American system where government's giving out money to people, to the people, and they're assuming these people are going to be good people and actually use the money to say what they're going to do, but then they end up just pocketing it. And I think on the Chinese side, you're going to be absolutely cooked if you do that. You're going to get a lot of trouble. I think that's just from my experience of what I've been reading on the news. But let me know if you guys have more details on that. But That's what I'm assuming is happening, where China's been able to develop so quickly because they have a central place where all the decisions are made. They're reducing corruption in the system. On the U.S. side, there's so many political influences and a lot of layers to get through to make a decision. And then when the decision, and even like when people are getting taxed, and a lot of people are getting taxed, and I'm sure you can tax the billionaires more, but damn, what are you going to be doing with that money? Where's the money going? You got to track the money. You can't just like have more money, but you actually don't know where it's going. That's the issue. I don't mind paying taxes if I know where it's going. I'm paying taxes. I'm like, why are there potholes still on my road? Why does it take me 2 hours to get like a simple medical procedure done? Like, where's the money going? I don't know. It's just an absolute scam at times. So, yeah, that's how I feel about the Chinese system and the American system and the money. And then I think also when I was in China, I think a big hurdle why people are a little bit nervous to visit China is because there is the Great Firewall, number one, where a lot of your apps don't work on your phone. So that's a huge barrier. And then you can get around that with AirAllo, which is a phone VPN I was using. It's built in once you have the eSIM. And then you can also get a VPN on your laptop, and then you can use all your regular apps. So those are some of the solutions to get around that. And then I think the English barrier is also something that holds people back from visiting China, as well as the visa part. But visa has been way more relaxed, so you can see a lot more Westerners going to China now. But on the English side, just use Google Translate. And then most service workers actually do have a very basic level understanding of English. And you can just be resourceful. You can figure it out. But I get that if that's a barrier for you. But if you want to go, just go, dude. Like, you can just point, I want this. There's ChatGPT, there's Google Translate, you'll be fine. But well, on another point around the English is most service workers do speak English, and I think English is an international business language, man. I was in the on-running store in Shanghai, and then I see a Russian customer speaking to a Chinese worker, and they're conversating in English because obviously the Chinese person is not going to go Russian, and the Russian is not going to know Mandarin. And I was also thinking, I was like, wow, English is such a big influence though across the world, because anytime I'm a Western traveler, I always see English signs on the road. They always have their native language and then English. It's like a gold standard of the world. And especially in China, they had their Chinese sign and then English on the bottom. And even when I was at the airport or taking the train, their instructions would be Mandarin first and then English second. So it just shows you the power of English and why it's so important to know English. If you were to only know one language, it would be English. And maybe that's why so many Americans just only know one language, because there's really no incentive for Americans to learn any other language, because the world just runs on the language of English, and that just shows the power of influence of America. Overall, I've really enjoyed my time in China and Shanghai, Chongqing, Chengdu. China's been probably Shanghai is probably one of my favorite cities I've been to, just because food's really good, it's really affordable, it's clean, it's safe, and it's just so different from any other Asian country I've been to. I think obviously Japan's really great, but man, China's just on a different level. In terms of cleanliness, I still think Japan is way better. Shanghai might be number 2. But overall, I really enjoyed my time in China. I hope you guys learned something from this video. I wanted to kind of do some digging in terms of why I think, or learn why certain cities in China are just absolutely killing the game versus the US, and wanted to share my experience of traveling to China. And I hope you guys enjoy this video. I'll see everybody in the next one. Peace.